Well, the nation's still buzzing over Canada's return to the World Cup last night. And of course, we're here in Doha, as is Brendan Dunlop, who's the co-founder of a site you're going to want to check out immediately, CanadianSoccerDaily.com. And make sure to give them a follow on Twitter at CanSoccerDaily. Guy's been very busy with all sorts of duties here in Doha. What's going on, Brendan? Thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
Hey, yeah, no, it's great to talk to you and talk to someone else that's Canadian. There's a lot of us here in Doha, which is pretty special, man, and pretty surreal.
Well, I got to tell you, and I know you were probably there inside earlier because of a pretty cool role you had last night, but I have to tell you, I mean, we got there a few hours before the game. I was blown away. I'd hooked up with some of the Voyageurs that were making the trip in Winnipeg, and they had said that they were expecting a couple thousand that were coming. There was at least that last night, if not more. The vibe of the Canadian soccer experience here has been really incredible, and we saw it firsthand last night.
It was amazing, right? I mean, this whole team has been talking about this new Canada. That was a moniker they took from John Herdman. That's how they played through qualifying. Every time they face adversity, it was, forget the obstacles of the past, forget the things that would get in the way, forget about the doubt that you have because things always went wrong for Canada. This is a new Canada. Part of that new Canada experience, which I wrote in my article, was the fans and being overwhelmingly the dominant fan group against one of the best sides in the world. There's a lot of reasons, and Belgium aren't the only European country, especially, that haven't traveled as well as they do in previous World Cups. Canada came out in full force, and you felt it in that stadium. There may have been 5,000. The Canada Soccer estimated that maybe 3,000 Canadians made the trip to Doha. There's a huge Canadian expat population in Qatar, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was quite a few that had made the short flight over from Dubai as well to come out and fill out. It sounded like there was 15,000 in there. And it started, an hour before. That ooh-ah Canada chants were amazing. And I was there early, and just hearing the anthems actually in rehearsal 3.5 hours before, and a big frog in my throat. So it was pretty incredible. I'm very happy to be here with the infotainment team. So as part of the in-stadium production, which means I got to read out the squad, the first World Cup starting 11 in 36 years. That's a career highlight, buddy. That's something I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, of course, a lot of people familiar with the work you've done here in Canada, focusing, a lot on soccer. I mean, you're very familiar in that. This has been, it's been all about the women for the last number of years, and now the men have finally done it. But, that entire scene before, and to be right in the middle and announcing Alphonso Davies and these men that have done something we haven't seen in 36 years must have been incredible for you personally.
Yeah, it was really special. Stadium announcing, being Mark Strong at the Raptors games jersey, that's not really in my wheelhouse, but it was really special to share that moment with all those fans that made this journey. It was the first time Canada's played at a World Cup in my lifetime. I was born in '86, but I was born a few months afterwards. Obviously, I wouldn't have remembered it anyway. So to see those players out there and put on the performance they did against one of the best sides in the world, like if anyone had told you a few months ago that Canada would go to a World Cup, lose to Belgium 1-0, and we'd all have reason to be upset because Canada should have won, you would have asked them what substance they were under the influence of. Like no one would have believed it.
Well, that was the case. And just quickly on the anthem, listen, being, involved in sports for so long, we've heard the anthem thousands of times. Mm-hmm. Being there, a part of that crowd, and knowing what was about to happen, and hearing and singing "Oh Canada" with so many Canadians, I got to say, was a bucket list and highlight moment that I will honestly never forget. I'll also never forget that game. Listen, I think like a lot of people had high hopes. But we went into the game knowing, man, the Belgians are the number 2 team ranked in the world. We're Canada. We're happy to be here. The guys that were wearing those jerseys last night didn't play like they were happy to be there. We know the result wasn't what we wanted, but I walked away from that game, feeling incredibly excited and optimistic about what is still possible in this World Cup. What was your reaction to the way the team played for that full 90 minutes and the way I thought they worked the Belgians? I thought they were, frankly, the better team for most of yesterday's 90 minutes.
Absolutely. The better team doesn't always win football matches, and that's the difference at this level. You got to take your chances. And obviously that penalty save, Thibaut Courtois is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. You can look at it and say it wasn't the best penalty from Fonzie. You can look at it and question why Jonathan David didn't step up to the penalty spot. There were quite a few chances Canada had afterwards. I don't think they lost that match because Alphonso Davies Davies had his penalty save there. But the real difference is, when Belgium had an opportunity, Michy Batshuayi is a proven finisher and a Champions League goal scorer. That's the difference at this level. You do have this degree of eliteness that allows you to succeed in those situations, and that's exactly what Belgium rode. And they seemed very frustrated and dejected in their post-match press conferences and comments as well. So disappointed in themselves that they had to ride their star goalkeeper in order to get to a situation there where they were able to win. And Michy Batshuayi's goal, Eden Hazard serves that ball over, and I was kind of lined up right in front of Michy Batshuayi. And as soon as I realized he was in a position to actually receive the ball, it wasn't going to go past him, I knew it was going in. And so when it did, it was a real gut punch, as I'm sure it was for a lot of Canadians. But a lot of Canadians that were in that ground or watched at home agree with you that if they can play like that, that is the bar now. If they can play like that against Croatia and against Morocco, there's no reason to think that Canada doesn't have a real chance of still getting out of this group.
Brendan, I don't want to say necessarily. I wouldn't be able to speak to the tactics, at a high level like you. But, what stood out about Canada's performance as far as the game went? What did we do so successfully to be able to have the chances, have the shots that we did? And was that the best case scenario for what you thought that this team was capable of, minus getting one past Courtois?
I tell you, I didn't expect them to be able to press and be as effective as they were in holding the ball for as long as they did. You saw in the last maybe 15 minutes, some tired legs. Naturally, that happens. But the intensity which they played that entire first half, then came out in the second half and just suffocated Belgium, really. That's an old back line. Belgium have the oldest team at this World Cup at just over an average age of 30 years old. But Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld, very experienced former Premier League defenders, they're well past it. There's a lot of Belgians very concerned that they were in the squad, let alone starting and relied upon. So obviously with the attacking threats that Canada have and the athleticism that we saw all through CONCACAF, you knew that was going to be a strength for Canada. They really found a way to make Belgium stress and put a lot of stress on them, for a long time. I thought that would happen in moments. I'd hoped it would happen for maybe the first 20 minutes of the first half an hour. That was the case for probably about 74 minutes of that match, which really is incredible. A testament to their fitness, a testament to their planning, a testament to their belief. And that's the thing with John Herdman, right? He had them believing that they could go out there and win that game. And then when it ended, he had them all knowing that they probably should have won that game based on how they played. And so they'll use that fuel to go into the next one Sunday against Croatia, which can't come soon enough for me, man.
We in sports and in the media always focus on the stars, and Alphonso Davies is a world-class international superstar. Of course, there was the missed penalty or the save penalty by Courtois. And he had some great moments, but who else stood out to you in the Canadian lineup yesterday that acquitted themselves well, that maybe announced themselves as real stars on a world scale in the World Cup yesterday night?
I thought Kamal Miller was huge. Center back, plays for CF Montreal. I think there was a lot of people back home that thought, the defense is the real weakness for this team, that they go and play some of the best teams in the world, and they were rather unlucky to be drawn against two of the best teams in Europe in this group, that they're going to be exploited at the back. Kamal Miller was massive. He was involved in so many blocks. He marked so well, and he's a great tandem with Steven Vittoria, who has a bit more European experience, but at 35 years old, isn't as fast as he once was either. I just thought as a tandem they were excellent. I thought that Alphonso Davies recovered very well. Obviously, after having that penalty saved, you would never have known. If you just started watching in the 12th minute, you wouldn't have known that he just missed the opportunity to make history and be the first World Cup goal scorer for Canada. You would never have known that was just moments away from happening. He really put that aside. There's a few players that are really going to announce themselves. Already some rumors about Alistair Johnson. Celtic are swirling around the CF Montreal defender. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Alistair Johnson, Kamal Miller had new places and we're not in Montreal and MLS this season.
For someone that's followed this team for so long, I have to admit, seeing Atiba Hutchinson out there is, I believe, the oldest player in this World Cup, acquitted himself very well. But what a great story he is. And can you speak to how much he's meant to Canada soccer and the rise of this program, being there from some pretty dark days and now being here at the pinnacle of the sport?
Atiba Hutchinson is incredible. He really is Captain Canada in so many ways. He flew the flag for the men's program when People weren't paying any attention. And when it was very easy to ignore. And there's a lot of people that were just so thrilled that Atiba Hutchinson was able to fulfill a childhood dream. No one really deserved that more than Atiba Hutchinson. 39 years old. It seemed as though, his national team days were done. I bet you if you asked him 10 years ago if he thought he'd still be playing professionally at that level, let alone leading his nation out at a World Cup against one of the best teams in the world, a team that many still think have a chance of winning the World Cup, he never would have believed you. So I'm really glad for Atiba and for his family. He's put in so much to the program, and really just to be rewarded for, all of those air miles, all of those bumps and bruises over the years, traveling through CONCACAF, playing these tiny nations, playing in against teams they had no business sharing the pitch with. For them to be out there and show that they belong, show that they could hang against Belgium, it was just, it was just too perfect. I'm really glad that he was healthy enough to start and lead the country out.
Hey, I want to ask you about one other player. I mean, of course, Davies and Jonathan David and Kyle Larin, who came in, was very, very impactful when he was on the pitch. I mean, we talk about the guys that are normally scoring goals. They get the headlines. For people that are not familiar with, tell us about Eustáquio, how important he is for Canada, and what sort of a player we have in the midfield making a real impact for the red and white.
Stephanie Eustáquio is my favorite player on this team. I know my name doesn't give it away, but I'm half Portuguese, and he is the Portuguese prince. He is incredible. He's playing for FC Porto in the Champions League. They won their group, if I'm not mistaken, in the Champions League this year. He was playing for a much smaller club, even just last season. When he made the move to Porto, some people thought it was a move too soon. He's incredible. He's someone who had the opportunity to play for Portugal. He played for Portugal at youth level. John Herdman was aware of his Canadian eligibility. He was born in Leamington. I'm from Windsor, so there's that Southwestern Ontario bias that we naturally share too. There's not too many people that go out in the world and do some big things from that region. So naturally, a big fan of his. But he showed in just a clip that's gone viral, with a nutmeg putting the ball through the legs of Kevin De Bruyne, arguably the best player in the Premier League right now, that he can also play at that level. And to go back to the point about him playing for Portugal, I truly believe there wasn't a single person that thought he had any chance when he committed to Canada. I believe he was 20 years old, that he had any chance of playing for Portugal. I'm really glad John Herdman capped him, because I think he would have started for Portugal against Ghana today if he hadn't become a Canadian national team player.
Brendan Dunlop is with us, also here in Qatar, getting ready for more Canada at the World Cup. Listen, the performance was great. We didn't get the result. There's still lots of work to do. With the tie between Morocco and Croatia, give us the landscape of the group right now. It's quite clear we got to win. We got to get 3 points right now. But what were the takeaways from the first game on both sides of the group, and Canada's path right now heading into the big match against the Croatians, who, of course, were in the final of the last World Cup in Russia?
There was this big narrative, though, about Croatia, that they're old and slow, and particularly in the midfield, that they're not the team that they were 4 years ago. And they are not the team that they were 4 years ago. I don't think that they're as slow or certainly as old as people like to say. I think that's kind of an easy narrative to fall on. It's low-hanging fruit. Luka Modric is arguably playing as well as he did when he won the Ballon d'Or that year in 2018. He is aging like a fine wine. He's always going to be a threat. And so is Kovacic, who plays for Chelsea. So is Brozovic, who plays for Inter Milan. They have a lot of weapons. But I truly believe if Canada can play the way they did against Belgium, then they will beat Croatia, because I don't think Croatia is that good. They are a few notches behind what they were in 2018. Morocco can be a real threat. They're a real wild card. I think a lot of people were surprised by maybe how well they went toe-to-toe and blow for blow with Croatia. But to come out of Africa, you're a good side. There are some great teams that are not here, and several of them are African, including Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria. So for Morocco to be here, you can't take them lightly. Hakim Ziyech from Chelsea is an incredible player, very talented and crafty, very dangerous, very much kind of in the Canadian mold of Tejan Buchanan, Alphonso Davies threats. So Canada have that to deal with. Canada's defense anyway have that to deal with. And Hakim Ziyech at PSG is one of the best fullbacks in the world, right up there with Alphonso Davies, our very own. So Morocco will be a real threat. But I really, I always thought that match against Croatia, that's the one that Canada could really cement themselves a place on the world stage with a victory. And after seeing how they played against Belgium, I truly do think that's possible. They get 1 point against Croatia and go out there against Morocco, they're going to leave it all out there. and I wouldn't bet against them. They could snatch 4 points via that scenario, drawing on Sunday against Croatia. Before coming here, I only saw 2 scenarios. I thought Canada's going to get 4 points, or they're going to get 0. They're not going to get 0. They're not going to get 0 points in this tournament. Just the way that they play, the fight, and the belief that they have going up against that opposition. I truly think that the fixture list has worked in their favor. Having Belgium first was perfect, because had they lost 6-0 or 3-0 or 1-0 as they did, it was all house money. The fact that they went toe-to-toe with them, bring on the next opponents.
What's the significance of the 0-0 tie, the draw between Morocco and Croatia? And could 4 points for Canada be enough to actually get second in the group and move on?
4 points could be enough. Yeah, that's exactly why scoreless matters, because it means that they don't have any other tiebreaker. They did take the point, but it wasn't any goals for that Canada have to worry about. So it makes for very simple math. That's why people get excited by scoreless draws in opposing games when you're looking for a result at the end.
We've heard a lot from many Canadian players on social media. And of course, we heard a pretty interesting and motivating interview from John Herdman at the end of the game. I mean, what do you believe that this result has done within that locker room heading into the Croatia match on the weekend?
In that change room, I think it confirmed what John Herdman already knew. I think it confirmed what they've been hearing and believed themselves, but maybe had some doubt about, because it sounds so surreal, to be Canadian and be at a point where you are trading blows with Belgium like that and show over 90 minutes that you belong there. I think that's something that we all wanted to believe, that a lot of those players felt was true, but now they saw it. They have proof of that. So I really think that's what it confirmed, that if there was a fraction of doubt, and I really don't think there was much at all, but it's natural. We're all human, right? We forget that these athletes are human beings. There's distractions. There's natural self-doubt. You can get on yourself very easily, at levels below this, let alone at this. This is the top level, playing at the World Cup. There's no doubt now. There's no doubt that this team belongs here and that they can play with anybody. So I just want to see that against Croatia. And what's going to be different, because it'll be earlier, be slightly warmer, although the sun won't be an issue. But it might be a couple of degrees warmer. I think it's good that they get a variation, but I really think that the night game was perfect, that the fans were behind them, and no doubt that those fans will be here pushing them forward throughout the tournament.
I cannot wait to get out there for the next game, and of course the Morocco game. Brendan Dunlop's with us. He's the co-founder of Canadian Soccer Daily. Brendan, if you could tell folks that are listening right now about the new site, the content you have, and got to say, loved everything you had coming out of the weekend. But I think this will be a great project, and something that I think a lot of people that are getting involved with this men's team for the first time, with the excitement, and help them follow the team and learn more about it. Fill us in on the new project.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, CanadianSoccerDaily.com. It's my new thing. We've seen some great written content over the years. There's some great places for it, but soccer really hasn't had one dedicated source for that. And, this is kind of a passion project, something I've always hoped was there. And so to be a part of it and finally get it off the ground now, it's such an important time for Canadian soccer. It's incredible. We all love the game and we watch it in many different ways and from many different places. It is the world's game. And Canadian Soccer Daily is the world's game through a Canadian lens. So happy to shine some light on stories that are already, being talked about and reported, the big stories that matter from the Premier League and the Champions League, but everything's got a Canadian spin on it, because, that's how we're watching it, through our Canadian eyes. So to also add to the spotlight and shine some stories on Major League Soccer and Canadian Premier League stories, can never get enough soccer content in this country.
Well, check out the website, folks. It's CanadianSoccerDaily.com, and make sure to give them a follow on Twitter as well, at CanSoccerDaily. Brendan, thank you so much for doing this. It was amazing to hear your voice and see you getting that great role yesterday. And
thank you.
Let's watch some history coming up on the weekend against Croatia. Then who knows what's possible against the Moroccans next week.
Let's get one of these Arabic coffees, because I'm sick of the Nescafe here. I need something special. I need something authentically local.
Thanks so much for doing this.